Hey now. Oh, they're still totally warm.
Yeah.
In America, a lot of people don't really think about where our food comes from, as long as it's cheap, abundant, and always available. But lately, food costs more and can be harder to find. Critics are saying that's because the pandemic has exposed the weak links in our food supply. Is that true?
Hi, I'm Patrick, Borden Dairy. Nice to meet you.
Of course, every business needs customers, and when the pandemic hit, the milk industry lost a ton of them. Tony Sarsam is the CEO of Borden Dairy in Dallas.
Schools are out. School is a big source of milk consumption. It's about 1/6 of our total business. Restaurants are about 1/6 of our business. They're substantially down.
Food in the U.S. is produced and distributed at an industrial scale. It might help to think of the food supply like train tracks. One track moves the milk from farms to processing plants to grocery stores. The other track heads to institutions like schools and restaurants. At this massive scale, when one track gets disrupted, the food has nowhere to go. And that's why we've seen dairy farmers dump milk and seen crops left in the field to waste.
If there's no demand for it, no matter how far we transport it, then it doesn't make sense to run around with a perishable product. And the only thing you're left with is dumping.
But wait, food banks are overwhelmed trying to feed 40 million newly unemployed Americans. The challenge here is there's no track to get the food from here to there. The only player big enough to fix a supply problem that large is the United States government, which launched a $3 billion program to buy ag products from farmers and deliver them to food banks and charities. While that program has been plagued by allegations of mismanagement, Borden has signed up to deliver 700 million school lunch-sized servings of milk.
Supply chain's a little tricky, so we have to find people who can take it. We got to find people who have cold storage available. So all those challenges are out there.
Does the government become like your biggest customer this year?
They'll be large, yeah. They're probably, they wind up in the top 5 for sure.
I mean, that gives you a sense of that this is a huge rescue
It
that
is.
they're doing.
It is, yeah. It is a huge opportunity. It's a huge rescue for folks in that time of need, and precisely the right thing for all the constituents right now.
When it comes to beef at the grocery store, the story, as you've probably seen yourself, is higher prices, less selection. What's going on there?
This has really exposed a lot of vulnerabilities in our system.
I'm talking to Bill Lilliston. He's an advocate for fair and sustainable food systems at the Institute for Ag and Trade Policy in Minneapolis. He says a small number of companies control the majority of meatpacking.
I think it's also exposed a lot about how exploitive some of these companies are in their meat processing plants with their workers. These workers were already working in dangerous conditions. They're elbow to elbow. There's a lot of workplace injury. And here you're seeing almost a perfect scenario for the spread of a very contagious disease.
Industrial meatpacking plants are COVID-19 hotspots. According to the Midwest Center for Investigative Reporting, there have been 20,400 positive cases tied to meatpacking plants. The area around Amarillo and the Texas Panhandle, with 2 massive facilities, is the hottest spot in the state. These outbreaks from across the country have forced some plants to slow or temporarily stop production. That means less beef and higher prices.
The defense of the system is that it's efficient, that it's cheap, and food is abundant. And those things sound pretty good.
They do. I think there's a price to pay, though, when people say it's cheap. It is cheap for the consumer when they go to the grocery store, but it's not cheap when you consider some of the working conditions that workers have to deal with in this system.
Thomas Locke owns a farm 90 minutes northeast of Dallas called Bodark Meat Company. He sells beef and pork and eggs directly to customers at farmers markets. Since the pandemic hit and beef shortages followed, he says he's been selling more food than ever.
Once COVID hit in March, I started getting phone calls from people all over North Texas looking for food. Some of them were interested in the local and sustainable side of it. Most of them just wanted ground beef again because they couldn't find it at Costco or at their grocery store.
Thomas is telling me if our nation's food policies supported more independent farmers like him, local communities could respond faster to shocks in the food supply.
Well, we're just small, and I control everything. So I control from when the cows are born to how the cows are raised, to what we do with our soil and our grass. I market everything myself. I sell everything myself. And so I can move very quickly.
It's not realistic to think these global food supply chains are going to stop running. But what Thomas is saying is reestablishing local food economies alongside our industrial system will make the overall food system healthier and more resilient.
If we had 1,000 small farmers like myself across North Texas, there's just a lot more nimbleness there and a lot more diversity. So our food system would be stronger because of that.
Easy access to cheap and abundant food. That's the American way. But what I learned is the pandemic is showing us there is a cost. In places, our industrial food system is out of balance and susceptible to shocks and bottlenecks. And overall, when it comes to feeding the nation, we're just not as resilient as many of us assumed that we were. If you've got something you want verified, send me an email.